I'm Mark Medina with the Los Angeles Times, and we're presenting to an NBA draft edition of Lakers Roundtable. The Lakers just came off NBA draft night, selecting West Virginia sophomore forward Devin Ebanks with the 43rd pick, and then later on the 58th pick, they selected Derek Character from Texas, El Paso. We're going to talk about Devin Ebanks' performances and what he could possibly bring to the Lakers. And to help us provide some of that perspective, we bring to you Chip Fantanaza with Metro News Radio Network in West Virginia, who's been following his whole career. So we'll get some insight from him. How you doing, Chip?
Good. How are you doing out in L.A., Mark?
Oh, it's bright and warm and sunny. How's West Virginia treating you?
Oh, it's warmer now. No more snow in the season.
Good to hear. Well, you're well aware that Devin Ebanks is now officially a Laker. He's going to be competing in the Summer League starting earlier in July, and then he'll see if he can crack the roster spot in the Lakers. And a lot of fans are kind of wondering what could he possibly bring to the Lakers following his career at West Virginia. Can you kind of assess what type of player he brought to the Mountaineers?
Well, the biggest thing that Devin does is he's a great defensive player. I know what Coach Huggins did a lot was they used the 1-3-1 defense, and he put Devin out in front of the point guard because you have a forward who's like 6'8", 6'9", and he has a wingspan that's close to 7 feet. So when you put him against some point guards, it's tough for him to pass the ball, and he did a great job defending. And also his other strength is rebounding as well. He averaged about 8 rebounds a game, which in the Big East is pretty good. And considering Devin didn't play a few games in the beginning of the season, he averaged maybe 9, 10 rebounds a game if you take those out. So he's very good at both of those things. Shooting-wise, three-pointers, not as good. He shot 10% this season, but he can hit the occasional mid-range jumper. Defensive rebounds are his specialty, and he can occasionally get the offensive rebound, and he can put it back. It's going to be interesting to see how his skills adjust in the NBA because going into the Big East, that's the toughest league in all of college basketball. And he did very well adjusting, and of course, under the head coaching of Bob Huggins, who's a great defensive-minded coach, Devin was able to develop and really took some major strides with his defense this season.
Well, how do you think those skills will ultimately translate in the NBA?
I think it'll take him some time. I think Devin still has some developing to do because when he first came to West Virginia, a lot of people looked at him as almost like the poor man's Kevin Durant. There were a lot of similarities to Kevin Durant. Well, they've got quite a few similarities. They're both lanky, and they're both very tall. And Devin Ebanks, I don't think he's lived up to his full potential yet. I think right now it is a little bit disappointing for some Mountaineer fans to see him get drafted 43rd overall. I know many Laker fans are happy to get him, but I think another year in college may have helped out his draft stock and also his ability. You have to remember that coming out of high school, Devin Ebanks came from the New York area, and he was projected to be a top 20 pick if he could leave from high school. But, of course, the rules don't allow that anymore. And for Devin Ebanks to be drafted 43rd overall, a little bit disappointing for some fans, but at the same time, they're happy that he is going to be a Los Angeles Lakers because you obviously have connections from West Virginia to L.A. like Jerry West.
And we're speaking with Chip Fantanaza with the Metro News Radio Network in West Virginia, and you can also follow Chip on his Twitter account. I'm giving you a plug here at Chip Fantanaza, ChipFontanazza. And you mentioned how some fans thought that Ebanks would be selected possibly even in the first round, but it took the 43rd pick and then the second round. Do you ultimately see this being almost a steal for the Lakers, or do you think that there's a reason why he was selected so late?
Well, I think one of the reasons why he was selected so late was because early on in the season he didn't play a couple of games, as I mentioned. That was because there may have been a couple of issues with the team, and I think that's what may have hurt his draft stock. And listening to a few interviews he did while he was going through practices and workouts with teams, I don't think he addressed that too well. He kind of avoided the question, and I think that that really hurt his draft stock. Because on our the sports statewide sports line we have here in West Virginia tonight, we were actually talking a little bit about that. And Deshaun Butler, who got drafted right before Devin Ebanks, who was a Mountaineer. One of the reasons why he did get drafted is because he had such great character. And last night I got to interview him after he got drafted and talk to his agent, and they said that was one of the main reasons that he was selected by the Heat. You have to remember that he tore his ACL in their Final Four game against Duke. So there's some question of whether or not he would get drafted. But NBA teams know now that, an ACL is a fixable injury. And, of course, Deshaun has such great character, such great determination. He's such a great person overall that he will be successful. And in the minds of a lot of draft guys, that makes a big difference. I remember Nick Saban, the national championship coach with Alabama, was here in West Virginia speaking at a luncheon one time. And he talked about his linebacker, Rolando McClain, who got drafted in the top 10, I believe, in the NFL draft. And when he was a freshman, he got in a fight with some frat boys, and they didn't press charges. And Nick Saban gave him an example. He said, you know what, Rolando, if you would have gotten charges pressed upon you, you would have immediately been knocked down to a third-round draft pick. And he didn't have charges pressed up upon him, so he is a first-round pick. So character issues like that, it makes a difference, because when teams are investing millions and millions of dollars in these players, they're not going to want to see something like that on your record. It's just like when you go for a job. If you've been in prison, you've had a couple of scratches on your permanent record, they're not going to hire you. And obviously they're going to take a person who has a cleaner record. And obviously that shows that you can be more successful. Not to say that they can't clean themselves up, but it does make a difference in the mind of these NBA teams and these coaches, because it is a business once you get to the NBA.
And Chip, you mentioned Ebanks' off-court issues that he had earlier this season. That's a subject I actually brought up to Lakers general manager Bitch Kupchak when he talked with reporters following the draft, and he said that that's something that they researched and they thought that it wasn't going to be something that would be detrimental to the team. Knowing Devin and covering him, do you think that he's matured since these incidents, or is this something to be worried about?
I do believe that he matured, because you have to remember that this happened at the beginning of the season, and one of the reasons the Mountaineers were so successful, and again, they made it all the way to the Final Four, was because of Devin Ebanks. And that issue was basically long gone by the end of the season. But when you have a team like West Virginia, it doesn't get as much national attention during the season as many of these other teams. So you don't get as many people coming in here and seeing how the team is doing. And usually, how they say, first impressions last. Well, that's what I think a lot of people in the national media and a lot of NBA teams got with Devin Ebanks. But he's really matured this year. And, Bob Huggins has had a ton of players going to the NBA, and I think during that issue he came over to Devin and he said, listen, you're not going to be able to play in these games, but I've had players who were just as good as you before, so if you do what I say, I'll help you get to the next level and help you get to the NBA, and that's where he's at right now.
Ultimately, the Lakers have many salary cap issues, and they also have a very talented team. But ultimately, knowing how Devin is as a player and knowing his skill set and potential, do you personally think that he can make the roster come training camp?
I think if he sticks to what he does best, if he rebounds and he plays defense, he will make the roster. During the season, I think Devin thought that he was too much of a shooter. Like I said, he shot 10% from three-point range. He made 3 threes in 30 attempts. And then I know towards the end of the season when he realized, just stick to playing defense, rebound, and put the ball back, that's when he was successful. And Bob Huggins has mentioned this a million times to his players, and it's true anywhere. Good players show you what they can do. Bad players show you what they can't do. And I think if Devin shows the Lakers what he can do and sticks to that, he won't make the roster, because in the NBA, a lot of coaches say if you can do one thing well, you can stay on the roster, whether you can rebound, play defense, you can hit the occasional three. Devin Ebanks can do 2 things well right now, which is play defense and rebound. He can work on his shots during the season, but if he does those 2 things, I have confidence that he will make the Lakers roster.
Well, those were the thoughts of Chip Fontanazza, who's with the Metro News Radio Network in West Virginia. Chip, thanks a lot for your insight.
And no problem. Anytime, Mark.